l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim, l'chaim. On Hey Teves Tavshim Em Zayin, the simcha, the joy that we all felt was literally indescribable. I remember saying to a chaver, now I know what it will be like when Mashiach comes. The joy that we felt, that the kitrug, that the decree, that the black clouds, that the challenge to the Rebbe, to Chassidus, had been lifted, is something that transcends everyday language. It was a day that was megala. It was a day that revealed our feelings of iskashrus, our feelings of love and connectivity to the Rebbe in perhaps an unprecedented way. And if there is a central theme of Hey Teves, and if there is an overriding emphasis on the unique joy and the power, on the fervor and the happiness that punctuates this day, all of it is woven from the tapestry of Iskashrus, of our bond with our Rebbe. On Rosh Chodesh Kislev, we began the countdown of 70 days to Shivim Shana, to 70 years of Yud Shvat. And tonight we enter into phase 2. We're only 35 days away from the Yom HaKodesh, from the awesome and holy day of Yud Shvat, when the Rebbe was mekabeled in the Siyas. To speak about what this means to all of us, and how we must all be moved to act, the Vad now calls upon Harav Baruch Hertz from Chicago.
Chaim, good Yontiv. Today is a day which is the greatest simcha by Chassidim, by Klal Yisrael. It's a day which the Geula, and if we echo our feelings with the original Hey Teves and Heilig Mizgaber, it is the biggest Yomtiv which we should, I agree, we should be in a level of Reimamus, on an unbelievable level, the simcha of our Rebbe and our connection is Kashas to the Rebbe. The Rebbe tied Hey Teves to Yud Shvat and made the Hachana of Hey Teves, took the whole simcha of Hey Teves and made it as Hachana to Yud Shvat. And I was asked to talk about a little Yud Shvat. There's a major buzz, you say, in the world. This year is Yud Shvat Shnas HaShivim. 70 years of Kabbalah Sanasiyas of Yud Shvat. The world is talking about it. To explain what it means, Shnas HaShivim, that we don't need explanation. There's many sikhs as printed there's a Kovitz which explains Shivim. The Rebbe said many times, Shivim Shana, Shivim is Shleimus. There's many, many indications of Shivim. Every Chassid knows that Yud Shvat, Hagadol Shivim Meistis, when the Rebbe then made this whole idea of 70, the Rebbe was Miyasid, the Shivim Meistis. Everyone knows all the day of Shivim, the number of Shivim we all relate to. I want to share is, beginning with the Dvar Malchus, and that is that we are now, the Sikha, which the Rebbe said Nun Beis, Parsha Shmos, which there was no Shivim after that. And in a way, that Sikha is a little bit like in the middle of another topic. The Rebbe asked a question, a piece. Omar Rabbi Eliezer, with everybody knows that Mishnah. We say it in Agadah Shel Pesach. Omar Elazar ben Azariah. Harei ani keven shivim shana, I am like 70 years. V'lo zechisi sheta'ama yitzis Mitzrayim by leilos. I wasn't zeicha that Yitzis Mitzrayim will be said by night. I didn't have that schus. Came Ben Zoyma and learned from the pasuk. Call you man tis going to married to Shrine. Call you mechayecha. Call you mechayecha all your life, which the pasuk says you should mention Mitzrayim. Call, the call includes also the night. Hachamim ma'imrim. Call you mechayecha lahavi limaisa Mashiach to include Mashiach. Asks the Rebbe as follows. This piece was said, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the day he became the Nasi. We know that it was a story in the Gemara, a whole, how he became the Nasi. And the day he became the Nasi, said this piece. Why is this piece so important to the day of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's Kabbalah and Asiyas? Second question. I didn't have the schus. He never used such language. What's the big schus to say that Mitzrayim is also Baleilis or Mashiach? What's this? It's a language never used. The third question the Rebbe says, Omar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Hareani Kaven Shivim Shana. I am like 70 years. What is the connection if he's Kaven Shivim Shana or he's not Kaven Shivim Shana? We know he was really 18, but Kaven, he was like 70 years. What is that connected to the statement he said? And this is how the Rebbe explains it. Yitzias Mitzrayim is, Elazar ben Azariah was the Nasi. And his Avodah was Yitzias Mitzrayim. Yitzias Mitzrayim achol yoyim v'yoyim. To go out of Mitzrayim, the limitations, Mitzrayim, Gvulim, the confinements, the obstacles. The question is it only yomim, when things are easy, when things are just smooth? Comes Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and says, no, even leilos, when things are even dark, when things are even, there's obstacles, you also have to go out of Mitzrayim. Chachamim come and say, Chachamim Aimrim, Kol Yomei Chayecha, Lahavi L'Maisa Mashiach, that even when Mashiach will come, the Avodah of Mitzrayim is going to be relevant. This Avodah of going out of Mitzrayim, even when Mashiach comes. And then the Rebbe explains as follows. It's Negeah, how does one go out of Mitzrayim and do it in Yomim, in Leilos, in Mashiach? It's only Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah who became a Nasi. And it's the koyach of a Nasi who has that ability to take us out of Mitzrayim in all circumstances. And what kind of Nasi? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, we know, he differed with Rabbi Gamliel, that he held that every student is welcome in Beis HaMedrash. And even Rabbi Gamliel, who only wanted the elite, he agreed to him because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Nasi. And the shleimus of the Nasias is Harei ani keven shivim shana, because he's 70. And 70 is a mitzvah of shleimus, a mitzvah of a Nasi b'shleimus, and has the ability in shivim to pull out Yomim, Leilos, to be all-inclusive. To think about this Sikha, which was said in the base, and we're now going into a Tkufa, unbelievable Tkufa, Shnas HaShivim, where the Rebbe has brought us, every single Jew, Teicha Kabarai, in the Yomim, in the easy times, in the Leilos, in every Tkufa, to Mashiach, connecting Mitzrayim to Mashiach, Mashiach to Mitzrayim. This Sikha is so relevant and so pashut that it's really, the kuda is that when it comes to Shnas HaShivim, it's the Rebbe, it's Iskashrus to the Nasi, which pulls us out in all circumstances. Now, obviously, it's clear. The Geluyim are there, when we're going to Yud Shvat, Shnas HaShivim, the Geluyim are here, and we stand on such a special day of Teves, and we know the Geluyim are there. To explain that the Geluyim are there, we don't have to explain. One of the famous Yud Shvats, when Rabbi Soloveitchik came to Fabrengen, and it's interesting, the Rebbe gave him an unbelievable yachas, which is a pele. I mean, in a way, he gave him such yachas, and he stood up when he left. After the Farbrengen, the Rebbe wanted to know what he said about the Farbrengen. And he said, it says in Gemara that Yoina ben Amitai, he took Ruach HaKodesh from the base of She'eva. It says the base of She'eva and the base of Migdash was so powerful and so intense that he got Ruach HaKodesh. I never understood that Gemara. However, now that I see it in the Farbrengen, I know that is how anyone can take this unbelievable, there's the energy of Ruach HaKodesh. We don't have to explain the power of the Sichos Farbrengen. The question is us. So I want to share one or two things. The story which is known, a piece of the story is known. In Tavshin Chavav, there was a very famous Purim, when the Rebbe in the middle of the night, those who know, the whole Farbrengen, right in the end, when people thought Farbrengen was over at 3:30, the Rebbe said the very famous line, Kol haposhit yad noisten lo. Whoever stretches out his hand gets everything. And there was commotion in 770 for those, as you see in all the Yamanim and those who relate the story. And even the older people got out barely alive. And the Rebbe was pouring the whole night. It continued later as the Rebbe walked out of 770 in the car, outside in the car, we know the roof of the car, and later the Rebbe's house. We all know the story. In all the Yamanim, it says in the end that the next morning there was someone, I know the person, someone there, who stood there in the morning with a cup before davening and told the Rebbe he didn't get. And the Rebbe said, davening give me nisht. After davening he'll give, and he gave him this person mashka. And he gave him, and also one more person had a birthday and wished him a birthday. But there was never, afterwards, the Rebbe didn't give anybody else. He didn't give mincha later, people tried. The other people standing there, the Rebbe gave one person. So the known thing is that many say this person, his father was Karv L'Malchus, there were connections, and the Rebbe, why the Rebbe gave him. But years later, I heard the end of the story, which is, I think, even more important than the actual story. And the end of the story is as follows. This person who didn't get, he came home. In those times, there wasn't a WhatsApp, there wasn't a text. He didn't know it continued. And he came to 1414, a bacha. And he was very upset. And he felt bad. So his friend told him, listen, let's sit and Farbreng the entire night. And we'll continue the Farbreng until Shachris. And then by Shachris, you'll go with a cup to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe then, you'll ask the Rebbe for L'chaim. And that's what happened. They stood a whole night and he Farbrenged and getanzt and Farbrenged till he walked to the Rebbe. And when he approached the Rebbe then, he didn't come. He came after Farbrengen. He came after continuing what's important, and the Rebbe then gave him was shot of him in the Hemshech. This story is very important to us. We're coming now to Yud Shvat. Hey Teves, it's a big day, and we're coming to Yud Shvat. The shaila here is there's two ways of approaching it. When we come to Yud Shvat, are we going to take, as the Rebbe did, Hey Teves, take the Hemshech, and come with a hachana to learn the Rebbe's Sichas and Amarim, that when we come to Yud Shvat, it has a real Hemshech, or it's going to be on its own standing thing. And that is the question we can ask ourselves. That is the shaila each and every one can ask. And this is really the shaila here we're coming to this day. As we stand now, I can tell you, there's a chalukas going around the world. We had last night, we had Rabbi Lou spoke in Chicago. We also divided a year, and we divided Vad over Chaim. And we thank Rabbi Mendel Shem Tov, and is giving out, and Pashat, and Josh Goldhirsch, and who inspired this. And there's a chalukas around the world that have a sichas hamarim and nigras. It's a yechaylis. The question is, the Shivim Shana, as we stand now, the nekuda is that every maimah sicha igras, kol yemei chayecha, should be learned and connected to the Rebbe. We have that ability. Recently, I had a guest at our table, a prominent doctor, and that prominent doctor spent a lot of time preparing a sicha, and wanted to review it, and spent the whole week preparing that sicha. Said the sicha with Hakdama. I know I wasn't there by the Rebbe, but I can still learn and give over the sicha. And they finished saying the sicha. When they finished saying this, I said, "I'm sorry, I want to object to your speech." I saw the color in the face. It became white. The person became white. Like, what am I going to say? I said, I disagree with your speech. So what do you disagree? I said, if you allow me to say, I disagree. I do not feel you are not by the Rebbe. When I heard this sicha, and the way you chazed the sicha, and the way you said it, and you lived it, I feel b'shas maisa you're by the Rebbe. We have that yechaylas to be there. We have that ability to be there by the Rebbe. I had another incident a few years ago that somebody told me. It's a long story, but I'm not going to say the whole story. But the nekuda was that I asked the person who I met to put on tefillin. And this was a prominent Jew in Chicago. Later, I heard it from somebody else standing there, and the first time I met them, I asked them to put on tefillin. And I told them a verb from the Rebbe. They went to a sudden simcha in a shul there, and a Rav heard that Gvir. He ran with a plate, and he said, "Here, you can join us for classes." He says, "My rabbi is Chabad, and let me tell you why. You're coming with plates and invitations. They're coming with words of Torah and asking to put on tefillin. We have that ability to prepare ourselves and prepare ourselves to this day." So I want to Messiah and say like this. And we stand now in this special day. V'atechi ruach, the Rebbe's famous sicha, and the Teves, Yaakov Aviyam. What was Yaakov? What was the chayas of Yaakov? That Yosef, in the hardest times, he went through. He was in jail. He was in everything. He remembered the Torah of his Rebbe. He remembered Yaakov's Torah. He was able to remember that Golis. That was the chayas of the Rebbe. The Rebbe once said in Fabrengen on Purim that why did Yitzchak want Esau asali matamim? Because that is, to get the brachas, you have to give matamim something to bring it down. Yud Shvat is a time, as we stand in Hey Teves, and it's connected, it's shaykhs one to another. Yud Shvat is a time that we know, it's Shnas HaShivim, there's a huge thing in the world. The Rebbe's hashpah, as great as it is going to be in an unbelievable way. The question is, are we going to connect to the Nasi? Are we going to do our chelik? Yud Shvat, the Rebbe always, as we know, made mission statements. Halach Bakar to Ozal B'Nemusa, the first famous Yud Aleph, and every year there was different statements made up to the Mashiach Sefer Torah and V'nasan Hashem B'chem Leil Das. In the following years, every time there was a tkufa. I think the mission statement is, if Lubavitch, Anash, Amakurovim, the world, Balabatim, we can tell the Rebbe's Torah. People are dying to the Rebbe's Torah. I made a achlata recently that every morning to wake up and learn a sicha. And that will be my vart for the day to somebody if I see them. People are desperate to know the Rebbe's Torah. It's a time now as we divide and we have a chalukah in all the Rebbe's Torah. As we learn the Rebbe's Torah, the world is, our children, our shvaim are waiting for us. This is the mission statement now. We want to connect to Shnas HaShivim, to Kol Yemei Chayecha, to every aspect of the Rebbe, whether it's Sichas, Mamarim, Igros Kodesh, everything. And if we go and do our effort to not sit by the side and make this a special time, we'll have, as we say, the Shnas HaShivim, this great Gilui Or which is coming down, and with Niska, Zenzich, the Rebbe Lamata, and the Rebbe together takes out a Golos. L'chaim.